Today, we are building our own pre-draft rookie wide receiver rankings by using the consensus rookie rankings from the Footballguys website as our starting point. I felt like this was just kind of a cool exercise to do. Like, everyone just comes up with their own rankings. Let's go and let's grab a bunch of other ones and kind of, mutilate them a little bit with our own opinions here. But we're going to pit two subsequently ranked wide receivers against each other. And then we're each going to vote on these receivers and pick which one we rank higher. The winner gets ranked. The loser kind of moves down the list. And without any further ado, I think at number one, we are all in agreement. There's no debate here. It's Jaxon Smith-Njigba. And Joey, he's the wide receiver one across the board here. Do you think that he is someone that is landing spot proof? He can just basically go anywhere in the draft?
I mean, I looked at the first round and kind of pretty much the top of the first round, and there's really not a place that I could see him going that I wouldn't be like, okay. Even if he went to New England at 14, I think I'd be pretty happy. I've seen a few mocks doing the little double Texans pick at 3 and there's at 12, where the Texans possibly get Stroud and then grab him. That would be very, very exciting if that were to happen. I mean, that seems a little fever dreamish, but I think he's pretty much landing spot proof.
Yeah, I think that a guy with his sort of skill set, because of where he lines up on the field, because of what he's good at, whether your quarterback's good, bad, young, old, whatever, that's just a guy that becomes the best friend of a quarterback. And Matt, based on your evaluation, this is one that I've seen a lot. A lot of people in dynasty leagues trading their rookie picks and getting really excited now. I've seen a lot of talk of Jaxon Smith-Njigba being the wide receiver one for this class, and then Drake London, who for many was the wide receiver one of the last class. If you were to pit these guys against each other, who's the better prospect?
Yeah, I think it's Drake London. And I actually think that if I was to combine the last few classes together, which by the way is a rankings tool I'm actually working on for receptionperception.com. So that will be that'll be the new feature coming out and can actually put this together. But I think he would probably be behind all three of the top three guys from last year. I would think he'd be behind Drake London, Chris Olave, and Garrett Wilson. But that's not to say that he is a bad prospect. I think he's a great player. I think he's very safe. Like you mentioned, I agree, Alfredo. I think he'll be the quarterback's best friend. I think that'll be a great role for him to fit into as a player who can win a little bit outside, but primarily inside, and give you those layup targets. I mean, there are so many offenses out there that could use a receiver that can get open in that short to intermediate range. And of course, I think he brings a lot of reliability there.
All right, guys, drop a like on this video and leave a comment with your rookie questions. I'll do my best to get back to every single one of these. Also, be sure that you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss any of our upcoming rookie and NFL draft content. Very last thing, check out the audio version of this show where we always have bonus content. Whatever video you're watching here, it's way shorter than what the actual show is. So you can click the link in the description or just go wherever you get your podcast and search Pretend GM, and you'll be able to listen to all of our bonus content that we have there. All right, guys, let's move on to wide receiver 2 here. And we finally have our first matchup. Jordan Addison out of USC versus Quentin Johnston of TCU. And these are guys that have been kind of ranked all over the board. Matt, I'm going to throw this to you first. Who are you going with here between Jordan Addison or Quentin Johnston?
Yeah, this is definitely where it starts to get interesting. I think Jordan Addison, though, is the guy I'm going to go with between these two players. And I like Jordan Addison a lot. I do have questions about his ceiling, not just because of the size, but because of the size, it shows up on tape, I think, especially if you're going to have him be out there. I don't think he can be like your X receiver. I think he really struggles to get on top of guys on pure vertical routes, like go routes, 9 routes, stuff like that, when he's lined up against a tough physical press man corner. So for me, I think he fits in kind of more in that Jahan Dotson-ish range from last year. Like he's that type of prospect, which is no shade to Jordan Addison because I was a big Jahan Dotson fan. I like a lot of what he showed at the NFL level in year one. So give me him over Quentin Johnston. Again, I do just kind of have questions about the ceiling long-term with him.
All right, Joey, where did you end up going here between Addison and Johnston?
Yeah, I went Addison. I mean, I was watching the tape, and it was kind of tough for me to tell where he played his first 2 years of college because he had all those like great play stickers all over his helmet. I couldn't find the logo, but I read that I think it was Pitt, so that was good to see. But yeah, he averaged 15.5. Yeah, thank you. I'm just knocking the research out of the park today, let me tell you. 15.5 yards per reception. His quickness and ability to change direction is going to be a huge problem for opposing defenses. It was Addison pretty simply not knowing landing spot at this point.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you guys. It's Jordan Addison. And it's one of those things that I think that we kind of get really caught up in the athletic testing stuff. And, I think it's kind of taking those numbers and what we have there and then contextualizing it into what a wide receiver is actually doing on the field. There's very, very rarely do we ever have that instance where a wide receiver is coming out of a track stance with no one on. Okay, I said rarely. Never is this actually happening where they're coming out of a track stance and running 40 yards straight downfield, or running these 3-cone type things. So I think they're good numbers to look at. And you go back and you see what Addison did: 42nd out of 50 participants at the NFL Combine for the athletic score. Not great, but he makes up for that stuff. He's a very smart route runner, and what I love is just a guy who can manipulate, defensive backs, hide in their blind spots, and just attack those open areas of the field. So I think he's one of those players that'll be a good, let's call him wide receiver 2 in the NFL. I just don't know that he ever lines up across from a top corner in the league and just consistently wins. But I think he's going to be a good weapon for an offense somewhere in that middle part of the first round of the draft. And boys, I went onto Twitter and asked them their opinion between Jordan Addison and Quentin Johnston. We all know Twitter's never wrong. Social media is always correct. And they went with Jordan Addison with 61% of the vote. So look at that. Everyone still loves us, at least for now. It's not going to keep going that way. All right, let's get to our wide receiver 3 here. Quentin Johnston moves down the board, and he is now up against Zay Flowers out of Boston College. Matt, I'm going to let you go first again on this one. Johnston or Zay Flowers?
Yeah, I mean, I've honestly gone back and forth pretty hard between Jordan Addison and Zay Flowers. I think those two guys are tough to stack up, and I've flip-flopped them a lot because I think there are strengths and weaknesses and plus and minuses to both guys. But in terms of this one, so I think you can guess my answer here is going to be Zay Flowers over Quentin Johnston. The Zay Flowers stuff, he's a really easy player, I think, to like. I do kind of balk at the high end comparisons, when people compare Zay Flowers to Antonio Brown. I get it from a size, but like, come on, man, let's not compare players to like one of the 5 best players to ever play the position. I mean, he was that good at his peak.
Every time there's a rookie player comp, it is a Hall of Famer or a top tier elite talent. It's never just like a normal player.
Yeah, it's never like Emmanuel Sanders. What a great comp, Yeah. Which, by the way, if you're gonna have an Emmanuel Sanders career, that's great. You would take that from your late first round pick, your early second round pick in the NFL draft. So Zay Flowers, though, I think he makes a lot of sense. I actually end up comparing him to Deontay Johnson, who basically is like the Diet Coke version of Antonio Brown, but a bit more of a mistake prone player anyways. So I think that fits for Zay Flowers, who I do think is a bit of a mistake prone player as well, but great route runner. Love his ability off the line of scrimmage against press coverage. I think he could play any 3 of the receiver positions. Like, I actually feel better about Zay Flowers functioning out at X receiver than I do Jordan Addison, because I've seen him fight through physical press. I've seen him be more of a vertical X receiver than Jordan Addison necessarily has. I think Addison might be a little safer, but that ceiling with Flowers is worth chasing, who also gives you some after catch pop as well.
Joey, where are you leaning here? Harley Quentin Johnston? That's a little inside joke since you don't know how to spell his name. Or Zay Flowers. Where are you going here? Johnston or Flowers?
Yeah, it's Flowers for me. Like Matt said, that ability to find yards after the catch. I mean, he can accelerate and switch directions so fast. It's so fun watching his tape. And the only criticism I really have with him is the drops. 24 drops at Boston College for an 11% drop rate. I'd like to see him work on that. But other than that, I mean, I think he's a great first-round wide receiver.
Yeah, I'm going to go with you guys. I'm going Flowers here as well. And the drops are something I think that's notable. But it's also one of those things that's just like, it's a causality too. It's how often is this player getting targeted and having the ball thrown their way from a bad quarterback making a bad pass where that ball is maybe not where it should have been. And like, these are things that it's true. Like, these numbers are always great, but there's something that needs, it's something that needs context, right? And like, we saw Deontay Johnson had some of the most drops in the league. Is he a bad wide receiver by any means? No. That's why I do love that comp that you made for him, Matt. And there's actually reports coming out now that there's some rumors that Zay Flowers could be the first wide receiver drafted. Lots to talk about him going to New England at that spot you mentioned, Joey. So I think teams are getting a little bit more comfortable taking these smaller guys. That's where the NFL seems to be trending, as long as these guys can be playmakers and maybe not hitting all those traditional size thresholds. Now, gentlemen, I put this.
Hey, if the Patriots do take Zay Flowers, like you mentioned, does that, like, does that mean we got to give them a stock down because they're like the worst receiver drafting team in the league? It's like, hey, if they love Zay Flowers to make him the first receiver off the board, they're that bullish on him. They take him at like the 14th overall pick. I think they're sitting at. That's like, ooh, yeah, man. Maybe if Bill likes him, I don't know. That's a bit of a question.
Yes, I think we're getting Bill Belichick and those Patriots are getting a little bit more exposed now that Tom Brady doesn't like cover up the stink. And you're so right, man. Like when it comes to the wide receivers, N'Keal Harry, like what else are we looking at here? They haven't had much. Like Jacoby Myers has been one of their best receivers they've had in years, and now he's not even there. So yeah,
undrafted guy too. They didn't even draft him. He was an undrafted player, right? So yeah there you go.
So like, yeah, I would not be excited about Zay Flowers there. I think he does get a little bit of a ding. So I put this matchup of Johnston versus Flowers on Twitter, and it was exactly 50-50 from the public there. They are right, just split down the middle. So I think we made the decision for everybody. Gentlemen, let's move on to wide receiver 4 here. Quentin Johnston is just in a free fall at the moment. And he's going up against one of my favorites. So you kind of know where I'm leading. Josh Downs, wide receiver from North Carolina. Matt, I'm going to have you start this off. Who are you going with, Johnston or Downs?
Oh man, this one is tough, and another one I flip flop on a lot. In fact, when the guy I picked, I think for the show, I think I picked Josh Downs, but I might change my mind when I put the final rankings on the site. I think this one could be one where I flip flop a lot, but I for the sake of the show, I did vote for Josh Downs, a player that I really like. Again, I think he's a safe player. I think he's got a really high floor, which is certainly not what you would say about Quentin Johnston, who I think is a little bit more volatile as this ranking is showing up here today. Josh Downs, though, I think is just an easy player to like. He's a guy who gets in and out of his breaks really well. I think he's an easy separator. I know there's some questions about translating slot production to the NFL. I don't really care about the production profile part of it. What I care about is the easy to translate skills. And I know that you'll talk about them as well, Alfredo. Like great hands in contested situations despite the size. He's a player who plays above that frame. He's a player who can win above the rim despite being a smaller guy. Love that part of him, and just love his route running as well. I think he's an easy translatable slot receiver. That's not going to be for everybody. Like when we're talking about Johnston versus Downs, like you couldn't probably talk about two more different deployment and role perspectives, especially at the collegiate level. But I for me, just typologically, I like Josh Downs a lot.
All right, Joey, we have agreed on every single wide receiver so far. There has not been a single disagreement. Does that break with you here in Johnston versus Downs?
I feel like I'm the guy on these, like the head up matchup shows that we've been doing, that I'm the guy that breaks first. And so, yeah, I am going to break. It's Johnston for me. I do like him a little bit better, but as far as Downs, everything Matt said is correct. His ability to haul on the catch while contested is fantastic. And the teams are going to draft him. Actually, only one team will draft him. I don't think two teams allowed to draft one player.
I don't think that's allowed anymore. No, it's just one team.
Okay. Yeah. I feel like he's a good fit for Kansas City, believe it or not, if they can get him towards the end, if he falls a little bit, because I do think the player we're going to talk about next might get drafted before him. But yeah, I'm very happy with Downs.
Joey, that was a professional tease right there, and I like it very much. Now listeners are just glued to the edge of their seat. You did it. Yeah. All right. I guess I have to break the tie here. Yeah. And I kind of already gave away the ending. Spoiler alert. I'm going Josh Downs. And it's so many of the reasons that you guys already talked about. And I think what's crazy here is looking at these two players that could not be on more opposite ends of the spectrum, where you have this big guy who struggles with route running and nuance and contested catches. And then you have one of the smallest guys in the draft that is an excellent route runner, has incredible spatial awareness of every single defensive back. Like he plays chess when he's out there. He knows where those open zones are, and he's able to kind of maneuver away from his defenders last minute to get into that open space where he can catch and run. I love what Josh Downs does. He's the guy that makes the quarterback more comfortable out there. And I think that's what every offense wants. I think if I read this correctly, he has either had no top 30 visits or maybe just had like one or two recently that finally happened, but he is way behind on everyone else. And a lot of the talk out there is because teams know what they're getting with Josh Downs. Like there's not a lot to investigate there with him. You know, it's not Quentin Johnston. It's not Zay Flowers. You know what you got with him. So guys, I put this question out to Twitter again, and Joey, Twitter agrees with you. 77%. 77% says Quentin Johnston. And I think a lot of that is just, it's just sexy, man. Like he's tall, he's
It's
fast,
sexy.
like he's got the cool number, the dreads. Like that's just the public loves him.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to our wide receiver 5 here. Even though Twitter picked Quentin Johnston, he's still going to move down. So we got Quentin Johnston versus Jalen Hyatt. And I think that these might be the two most polarizing wide receivers in this whole draft class. Matt, I'm going to let you take first crack at this. Johnston or Hyatt?
Yeah, this one's easy Johnston to me. We'll talk about Jalen Hyatt a little bit later and how that's a complicated evaluation. But I agree with a lot of what you said about Quentin Johnston, that he's a sexy pick. He's a sexy player for sure. I do have a lot of questions about the translation to the NFL, though. Even the stuff that he's really, really good at in college, the yak stuff. Like we get on running backs and even quarterbacks for like seeking out contact and creating those opportunities for themselves to get tackled in the open field. I think Johnston seeks that out a lot, which boosts his like yak numbers, boosts his broken tackle numbers. But in the NFL, it's like sometimes you want to just get upfield and don't put yourself in a tackle breaking scenario. So I kind of have a little, but that's nitpicky stuff because I think the yak stuff will be the biggest part of his game and one of the most appealing parts of his profile. It's kind of funny that like we're talking about this class full of these smaller receivers, and I kind of think the guy that plays smallest of all of them is the 6'3", 210 plus pound guy here in Quentin Johnston. The catch point stuff is really concerning. He lets so many balls into his body. He has this giant wingspan, this giant frame, and he really hardly ever uses it. Now, you could take that as a positive or a negative that he's shown so many good things. And if like he just gets the right coach to really ride him a little bit and to push him, like he could end up being easily the best receiver of this draft class. That stuff's just hard to know. And you mentioned like the top 30 visits. He's a guy I'd absolutely want to have in the building for a top 30 visit because it's all going to come down to work ethic for a guy like this. And I don't know Quentin Johnston. I maybe you guys do. I don't. I've never sat down with him, but and even if I did, it's hard to know who is the guy going to put in the effort that's going to need to take him from being an inconsistent, splashy, big play threat or a true like 130, 140 target receiver that I think he absolutely could be. To me, he very similarly grades out to Christian Watson from last year's draft class, like, but a little bit more proven because we've seen him at a bit of a higher level we've just seen straight up more of him, seen him at a higher level of competition, even though the Big 12 is not known for big time defense. I think he's a guy that could be win on posts, win on slants, win on go routes, and really that's just about it. And you get him going in the open field just like Christian Watson was as a rookie, but I think there's potential for more than that. So very volatile player here.
If I'm not mistaken, you bring up Christian Watson, TCU's head coach. Isn't that's Sonny Dykes, right? And he was the head coach at North Dakota State not too long ago, like last year, right? With Christian Watson. So it kind of makes sense that he was able to utilize him. Joey, I mean, the secret's out. I know you went Quentin Johnston because you did it last round. Tell me a little bit more here about why you go Johnston over a guy like Hyatt.
So I do like big bodied receivers. I really do. And I think he provides something different in this draft class compared to what a lot of other guys have until we get a little further down the list. And while the talent might not win out that part, if a team's looking for a big body receiver, maybe like a red zone threat that is going to use some physicality, I think Johnston can be that guy. Now he needs, like Matt said, he needs to find a coach that's going to coach that physicality correctly because that was one of his main criticisms coming out. But I could see him going as high as 9th overall to Chicago. But if I had to put him somewhere with the Chargers at 21, if he falls like he has for us today, would just be really, really nice.
Yeah, I think that he's going to be one of these guys that it's just going to be so volatile. All the draft projections, and even once he is drafted and he's on a team and we think we know what we're talking about, his rookie year projections are going to be all over the place too. I want him because of his size and because of his speed and because of all that. I want him to be that guy that can go play above the rim. I want him to be more like a T. Higgins, right? A guy that you can have him out there as just a go and get it type receiver. And right now it's just to throw out a name. He's more like a bit like a Terrace Marshall, like a Strider who can make some big plays every now and then. He needs the refinement as a route runner. He needs to be a better hands catcher. He needs to do all those little things that make him a pro. Gentlemen, that is it for us today. Thank you so much, Matt, for joining us. Joey, as always, whatever. Thanks for being on. Yeah, you're here. I'll be back next week to talk rookie quarterbacks with Jordan Van Eck from the 33rd team and Matt Waldman of Footballguys and rookie scouting portfolio fame. Quarterbacks and tight ends. It's going to be a lot of fun. For myself, For Joey and our special guest, Matt Harmon, thank you so much for listening. Adios.